It's now 7 months since the Road to Ruin video first alerted people to the threat of a gigantic development on the old ironworks site at Stanton-by-Dale. Figures of between 5,000 and 7,000 houses have been discussed, but whatever the final number, it is intended to be the largest brownfield development in the UK. What is also certain is that for anyone living within a 20-mile radius of Stanton-by-Dale, life will never be the same again. Since then, much has happened, but little has changed. In the surrounding countryside, summer quickly gave way to autumn, and in turn autumn slipped effortlessly into the short days of winter. It is a cycle that this landscape has seen repeated for thousands of years, yet for much of this fragile and priceless countryside, this could well be its last. For all its timeless beauty, this is a landscape that is still waiting. It is waiting on the whim of a handful of faceless businessmen, politicians and bureaucrats who will decide its fate. It is a fate dependent not on its ability to provide thousands with the tranquility of green open spaces rich in wildlife, a buffer from the encroaching conurbations. Instead, its fate hangs on its ability to provide a cheap and easy access road that in turn will make the Stanton site more attractive to developers. At this hopwool farm on the A52, conservation has been quietly practiced for decades, certainly before words like green, environmental and sustainable appeared on the pages of nearly every government publication. Rare birds, unusual plants, protected species are all thriving in this fragile corridor of land. Erewash Borough Council tell us that wild, green, open spaces like this are vital for our well-being both now and for future generations. Yet it is precisely this land that the developers consider the cheapest and easiest option for their access road. It is also land such as this that the council may consider as fulfilling its biggest criteria, that its loss will affect the least number of people. It is also said that areas such as this are priceless. Yet in a moment you will discover exactly what a landscape like this is worth, what it will cost to save places like this for future generations. And the answer is shockingly cheap. During last summer, concerned people from all walks of life came together to form Green Squeeze, a group not opposed to the development of the Stanton site, but rather to ensure it is done in a sensitive and responsible way. However, a non-negotiable condition of any development is that it should not be at the expense of the surrounding greenbelt. Quite simply, Green Squeeze believe that this is an area of green space vital to the well-being of the Erewash community as a whole. They also believe that to spoil it would be to deprive future generations of a vital immunity. So, how do Green Squeeze intend to protect this land? Green Squeeze is growing daily and now comprises of hundreds of people, amongst whom can be found the many and varied skills required to mount a successful campaign. With that in mind, they are also aware that they're up against developers with an almost unlimited budget for advisors, consultants and legal guidance. While there is no doubt that this project is being driven by central government via some frantic and very unhealthy pressures on councils and officers at all levels, the final decision will be made after a public inquiry, most likely to be held in spring 2010. It is an inquiry that they, the developers, along with all and sundry that have an interest, will be determined to win at all costs, with the word costs being paramount. For this, they will wheel out the biggest and best guns available, probably in the hope that organisations such as Green Squeeze will make the mistake of pursuing their case themselves. While Green Squeeze has the talent to give councils and developers a real run for their money when it comes to mounting a campaign, we are canny enough to realise that when it comes to the legal process regarding planning, expert help is crucial. This issue is too important to be left to chance, so in turn we need to bring in big guns of our own to give us the very best chance of winning this fight. The problem is that big guns don't come cheap, especially in the legal world. Green Squeeze have already engaged DPDS, a Derby firm of planning consultants with a formidable reputation and a fantastic track record in helping to win campaigns like ours. As the public inquiry approaches, they in turn will need to engage barristers, Queen's Counsel and planning experts on Green Squeeze's behalf, all of which will cost in the region of £50,000. So, now you know. To preserve green open countryside such as this has its price, and while £50,000 is a considerable sum of money, it is a trifling amount in terms of what it will preserve for your children and your children's children. Places to walk, places to enjoy wildlife, places to escape to, places to hear bird song, places to build character, and places to establish memories. Of course, there is always the chance that having spent such a sum, the developers could still win. However, what is absolutely certain is that if we stand by and do nothing, then all of this will certainly happen in its worst possible form. Sadly, Green Squeeze are the only organisation fighting to save the Erewash countryside. Faced with a proposal that could destroy not only the countryside, but also affect the quality of life for thousands of people, local councils claim they are powerless to comment, lest they prejudice their case before a planning application is submitted. Green Squeeze says this is rubbish, and such silence denies the public the right to know exactly what our elected representatives' views are on this vital issue. At the moment, our biggest enemy is not the developers, not the councils, or even the government. Our biggest threat is apathy amongst the people most likely to be affected. Since Spring UR withdrew their plans to develop the site in late November, most people imagine that the threat has simply gone away. Sadly, that is not the case. In fact, with the disappearance of Spring, the threat has become even greater. The owners of the site are Saint-Gobain, a French company with no history of property development and little interest in the area. So desperate are they to unlock the capital tied up in this land that they have decided to develop it themselves. They have picked up the reins by retaining all of Spring's many consultants and announced that they intend to adhere to exactly the same time frame as that originally proposed by Spring, with a planning application for the development and access to be made by late 2009. To Green Squeeze, this sounds like a perfect recipe for the worst kind of housing development and a total disaster for the area. Spring UR was at least an established developer. They had a track record to back up their plans and in addition made it clear that they wanted to build a flagship development they could be proud of. Frighteningly, Saint-Gobain can claim none of this. The brutal reality is that this is a French company with French values. Unfortunately, while our near neighbours excel in many things, a trip to the outskirts of Paris will quickly confirm that social housing programmes are not one of them. The Road to Ruin video concludes, this landscape, with its farms, woods, green rolling hills and quaint village pubs, touches people in many ways, but perhaps mostly because, in today's sometimes confusing society, it reassures them of who they are, where they have come from, and where they belong. England. In light of that, it is perhaps best that the future of this countryside rests entirely with those who understand it and recognise its importance. We, the people of Erewash.